How are you? Welcome to my kitchen again. I want to talk with you today about entertaining with coffee. No, I'm not being silly. I mean doing a whole series of things just with the flavor, the wonderful flavor of fresh coffee. Years ago when Patty and I were in graduate school, we used to entertain our friends just with a cup of coffee. We used a little demi-tasse, and we bought some fancy coffee equipment, that sort of thing, because we couldn't afford to feed them. Those were good days because we had grand times, and we owe it to coffee. Coffee's been with us a long time. As a matter of fact, about the 9th century A.D., a fellow by the name of Mullah, did you get that? Mullah, he was a Muslim priest, was having trouble staying awake during his prayers. You know, the Muslims are very disciplined in prayer, and it was important for him to stay awake. And he heard from another person that a goat herder had found some strange berries. No, the story goes, the Holy One, blessed be He, led Mullah to this goat herder who claimed that he had watched his goats eat some berries off of a particular tree, and when the goats ate the berries, they would jump around all night and dance and have a wonderful time. So Mullah went to tasted the berries, and he found that he could stay awake all night for his prayers, and he was not to bother with some side effect of some sort, and thus began our appreciation of coffee. By the time of the Second World War, we were consuming 17.5 pounds of coffee per person in America, just America alone. Coffee spread all over the world, and the flavor is just superb. This is a Turkish coffee maker, and probably one of the oldest coffee pots we have. My wife brought this with her when she came from Saudi Arabia as a little girl. No, she was not born there. She was visiting there for several years. And it helps me talk to you about the romance of coffee. It's very old, but contemporary coffee processing is a very interesting process, and there's nothing old about it. It's done very, very quickly and very beautifully with very fresh beans. I went to a coffee factory a few days ago, Stewart's Coffee, here in Chicago, and they use 16 different beans from all over the world to blend their regular coffees. First of all, the green beans are sorted, dumped out of the bags. You see it sorted. See how light they are? Nothing like the bean you and I know. And then eventually they are roasted in an oven at about 400 degrees. Each one of these ovens takes 500 pounds of coffee. This chap, charming lad, roasts 25,000 pounds of coffee every single day. Smith, take a whiff. Tell me what you think. Yes, it's yummy, isn't it? 25,000 pounds. But the fun part comes in tasting the coffee. And I went to an antique tasting room at the Stewart's Coffee. This is the grandson of the owner, to taste coffee properly.
This is what we call breaking cup.
Breaking, all right. And we just smell now.
Stir it around and bring the cup and the spoon up to you.
Okay. Tasting is one thing, but you have to concentrate. This man has a tongue that is so precisely tuned that he knows exactly what that coffee will be when it is blended with some others. So you taste very, very carefully. This company's 50 years old. Now watch him. Mr. Stewart, how do you think you should really brew a good cup of coffee? What method do you use?
I use a drip coffee maker, and I recommend a 200-degree temperature, which a lot of home units do not reach. 200 degrees, it's got to be good and hot, okay? And I do use a bottled water. Bottled water? That's the secret of good, clean coffee. This man is a serious coffee drinker. It's an old family in coffee, and it was wonderful fun to be there. The odor of the coffee factory, of the beans roasting, is still, at least in my mind and in my heart. It's wonderful. You know, when you roast beans, you've got to remember that the longer you roast a bean, the darker it's going to get, and therefore the more costly. Why do I say that? Well, because a light bean has more water in it. This is an American roast. Over against a European bean, which is roasted until the oil comes out, the bean is much lighter in weight because the water's gone. And thus, a pound of this coffee is bigger. No, listen to me now, it's the truth. A pound of this coffee is bigger than a pound of this coffee because the dark roast weighs less, you see. So even if you do have to pay a little bit more for dark roast coffee, in the long run, you're getting a much better deal. I'm convinced. Treat yourself to good coffee. For heaven's sakes, don't buy cheap coffee. There are lots of methods of making coffee. You know most of them, but I'll show you some weird ones. My wife brought this back from Saudi Arabia. When she was a little girl, she spent time there. And the Turks and the Arabs make coffee in this wonderful device. It's open pot. You simply throw the coffee in, put in the water, put this on the fire, and when you pour the coffee, you see, the spout keeps the grounds from flowing down into the cup because they all settle down in the bottom. Isn't it? And it's beautiful to pour coffee from this. Just gorgeous. We've served from it many, many times.
Then we have, common methods that you and I use. We use a Silex pot, that sort of thing. He mentioned an electric coffee maker. Do you remember? I have one that I use, and I like this at my own home in Tacoma because it has a device on it, a clock on it, and it'll have coffee ready for me every morning at exactly 5:17. And that's when I want it. I'm no good, well, you know the line. You're no good either without your cup of coffee, I'm sure. One of the most interesting old open pot methods, this is from France. It's called a Melior, very classy and just as expensive. What you do is to simply put some coffee. This is a coarse, rather coarse grind. Pour some coffee in the bottom of the gorgeous glass beaker. Oh, about so. And then we'll fill it with water, and then just let it sit for a while. And of course, the strength of the coffee depends on how long you let it sit. There we go. That'll just, I'm going to have to grab this and pour it over the pot so I don't put water all over the world here. There we are. That's pretty good. Last time I tried this, it went all over the place. Now, we'd let that sit for, 15 minutes or so, and then you simply replace the plunger and push it down. And you see, as the plunger goes down, it pushes all the coffee grounds to the bottom, and you wind up with a lovely cup of coffee, very, very rich. And I think, really, open pot is best. Did you notice that Mr. Stewart was sitting there, we were both slurping coffee. No, it's not gross. They do it every morning. He does this every morning of his life. He goes to that factory and they taste 10 or 12 different kinds of beans. What an interesting way to start your day. And they spit out the coffee. I was not being gross. Stop it. They spit out the coffee because they don't want to slow down any of their body processes with caffeine or anything else, you see. They want to just taste the coffee, then get rid of it. You see, the same thing with wine tasters. All right, open pot, Melior. Then, of course, we have a coffee machine from Italy. The old espresso simply means that you use good dark coffee, the dark beans, expensive ones, and you put them in a device that will make the coffee under pressure so that when the water burbles up through this funnel affair, coffee's in here, and then finally it kind of distills itself in the top of the pot. It's very, very rich and very, very black, and as far as I'm concerned, utterly delicious. You serve it in a light little cup and have a grand time with it. It's a great way to go. There's a coffee maker that really doesn't do anything at all except sit around. It's a cold water coffee maker. You see, put a pound of good coffee in the top of this thing. Just throw the pound of coffee in, then fill it up to within about a ½ inch of the top with cold water, and leave it sit for, anywhere from 10 to 24 hours. Now, there's a cork in the bottom here. In the bottom of this, you see the little hole? I've already taken the cork out. Here's the little cork. Now you understand. You take the cork out, and there's a filter in here. And you just let it sit for a while. It takes about ½ an hour to drain it all through. And you wind up with coffee extract. The solution in here with the water is made of 1 pound of coffee. And you treat it just like you do normal coffee, except that it's all ready to go. And you just pour a little bit of this into a cup, add some boiling water, and you're on your way. But the most fun comes when you use this for cooking, because it's very, very rich, and that's what we want to do today. I want you to celebrate lots of flavors of coffee. There are all sorts of things you can do. I had a coffee extract sauce on a bit of duck, along with a little bit of trim, you know, the usual old corny kiwi and all that sort of thing. But it was at Le Perregaux in New York. Wonderful restaurant. I'd never tasted coffee syrup, so now I'm into trying this. I have a dish I want you to see. I think you're going to like it. It's chicken and coffee. Can you imagine such a thing? The whole idea, let me get my pen going here. We better get some room so you can see what's going on, huh? There, we get some coffee out of the way. This is, I'm sorry you can't spell all the coffee today because it's wonderful. Oh, incidentally, when you make coffee in this little pot, you use a very finely ground coffee. Let me show you what it's like here. The coffee itself is about the consistency of flour. And this is Greek coffee or Turkish coffee. And you simply put in a big heaping tablespoon for each cup. And the cup is this size. You see, we're talking about a little bitty thing here. That's a tiny cup, a demi-tasse, a little half cup, you see. And it works very well. The coffee is very, very rich, and you put sugar in it. And then you boil, because the Turks say coffee is to be black as hell. No, see, that isn't right. Dark as night, black as hell, and something, and sweet as love. They like it very black, very thick, and it's wonderful. But it is grainy and rich, and the Turks taught the Greeks to drink this sort of thing. So this is sometimes called a Greek coffee pot as well. All right, I have 3 or 4 onions sautéing, and to my onions, oh, it's beautiful. To my onions now, I'm going to add, we're making chicken and coffee. Got that? To my onions now, I'm going to add a bit of paprika, and I have sautéed some chicken already ahead of time, but I'm going to add about 1.5 tablespoons. Oh, Lord, it always cakes up, doesn't it? There we go. 1.5 tablespoons of paprika. to my 3 or 4 onions. And then we're going to add a bit of coffee, and you can either use coffee extract, if that's the case, you want a little bit, or you can use a ½ cup of regular strong coffee. But this is an extract, so I'm going to add a bit and cook that down with the onions. It's just delicious. I know you find it a little bit strange to think about this, but it'll work. This will become our sauce. Let me find a wooden spoon and stir that down for you a bit. There. Wow, that's a little rich. I'm going to put some plain water in that. I used too much extract. I don't want it to be quite so heavy. There we are. Okay. That'll do us. I'm going to reduce that for a minute. In the meantime, I'll get a platter and put my chicken on it. The chicken is still warm. We've simply doused it with a bit of lemon juice, dredged it in flour with some salt and pepper, and then we're going to place it on our platter here. The platter's warm. The chicken is still barely warm. Yeah, that's all right. You do this all at once, and your chicken will be nice and warm. We pounded them out rather thin. For heaven's sakes, don't overcook chicken when it's pounded out like this. That's a terrible thing to do. All right. Now, we want to add a bit of yogurt and cornstarch. And we'll do it this way. We'll stir into a bit of yogurt, about 2 tablespoons of cornstarch. Now, I have a cup of yogurt. So I want to thin down that sauce, see? 2 tablespoons of cornstarch into a cup of yogurt. Come on. Isn't cornstarch wonderful stuff? It goes everywhere. Stir that up. And we'll put that into our onion, coffee extract, and paprika sauce. Coffee on chicken? I'm going to move this off the heat now so that it doesn't thicken too fast for me. And in it goes. There we are. Now stir this in a hurry or you're going to lose the sauce. It'll thicken too quickly. There it is. Look at that. Look at that. Now look at that. Isn't that gorgeous? Now just a minute. Let me try this. Let me try this. That's marvelous. It's not quite as bitter as you thought it would be because the yogurt is balanced off against the coffee and the paprika. Adds a kind of sweetness if it's good quality paprika. All right, put this on top of the chicken. There. This is the kind of thing. You know the lady down the street? You know her? The one that always wonders what you're doing? Invite her over sometime and she says, what are you making? Say, chicken and coffee. And show her this dish. Crack her up. I'd love it. I'd just love it. Parsley garnish wouldn't hurt, would it? There we are. Okay, we'll put this one out and go on to the next one. The possibilities of using coffee for entertaining your friends are really endless. For instance, if you take some good coffee, now I'm not talking about sleazy instant stuff, I mean coffee that you brewed from scratch, freeze it in an ice cube tray. I borrowed the tray from my lady down the street here. I better get this into a bowl, it's not going to work. All right. There they are. I'm going to throw these into a food blender. I suppose you can use a processor if you want, but these will go into the blender now, and we'll just grind them up. And we'll make a bit of, see some of the juice that's hanging on there. We'll make a kind of coffee ice. Obviously, if he's making ice cubes out of coffee, he's making a coffee ice. Now we'll cap this up and see what happens. It should work well. Okay. You have to keep banging it down. Sorry about the noise, but it can't be helped. This is the quickest way to make a coffee a dessert that I know of. Although one of my friends here in the studio, I'm not going to stand and mix this all morning. We'll just give you a bit right now. One of my friends called this a coffee slurpee. Ah, come on. She's that way, though, you know. She eats with us often. We'll just put some of the ice, you see, into a cup, all chopped up so that it's literally like a Slurpee. And then on the top of that goes a bit of whipping cream. I didn't want to take too long to spend on that thing because it never works when you're watching. When you're not around, it works all the time. So you be patient with yours and it'll do it fine. Otherwise, I'm not going to let a silly food blender get in the way of our relationship. There. Put a little coffee ice in the bottom of a glass, put some whipping cream on it. You have a marvelous dessert for the coffee freak in your life. And I'm one of those. All right, another one. This one is very popular with our friends since we first started doing shows in Tacoma, Washington in 1973. It's simply a coffee liqueur. It's very much like, not quite as good, but very much like the Kahlua style thing, you know. And it's wonderful for entertaining, poured over ice cream. This is how it's made. It's so simple it's absurd. I'm going to bring to a boil 4 cups of water. Got that? Really complex recipe. Now write it down. 4 cups of water, and I'm going to add to that, once the water is boiling, I'm going to add to that 4 cups of sugar. Good heavens, what's he making? Well, it's going to be good. You just be patient. I'll show you. And we'll cook that for a minute till it dissolves. And then we're going to add to that 2 ounces of a good instant coffee. I prefer that you use, I happen to like Spice Islands Antiqua because it's a very bright, bright flavor. That's a very rich coffee. But you can use some other if you like. 2 ounces would be about like that. All right? All right. That's 2 ounces. And we'll stir our coffee in. Don't quite boil this, but bring it to a light simmer. See, we now have 4 cups of sugar, 4 cups of water, and we're going to, this instant coffee, 2 ounces. Bring that to a light simmer till all of this dissolves. I'm obviously not going to take time to do it now because I have some other things I want you to see. There we go. That would be long. You bring it to a simmer and let it dissolve. It should not quite boil because don't ever boil coffee. Warmed over coffee, or boiled coffee, it's terrible stuff. Just terrible stuff. And that goes into a gallon jug. But first of all, we have to throw in 1 whole vanilla bean. You buy these at any good delicatessen. There it is. He went in there so fast you didn't get to see him. I'm sorry. Here, this is the whole vanilla bean. The flavor is just wonderful. The odor is even better. There's some foods that smell better than they really taste. And I think coffee is certainly one of those. So in it goes. And then we're going to add an entire 1/5 of cheap bourbon. Don't invest a fortune, please. Some people make this with vodka. But I prefer it made with bourbon. Now you'll notice that I put the bourbon in the bottle first, and then I'm going to add the coffee. What we have now is a coffee syrup, because I don't want to crack the jar. And if I put the coffee syrup in first, then you're going to have a terrible problem with cracking the bottle. I better get a platter to do this on, or a bowl or something. There. I usually make a mess when I do this. You can put this in a gallon jug if you like, an old wine jug or an old vinegar jug or something like that. Be sure it's clean. And we're going to cap this up and let it sit. No, this is not something you make if they're coming over tonight. You let this sit for 1 month. Got it? 4 cups of sugar, 4 cups of water, bring it to a boil. Put in 2 ounces of instant coffee, then a vanilla bean, a bottle of bourbon. Make your syrup first, and then blend it with the bourbon and the vanilla bean. Let it sit 1 month, and at the end of that time, you have a cordial, an end of a meal thing that's just marvelous. We serve this after we serve dessert, after we serve the cheese, after we've had the dinner coffee. Then we go into the front room, and I have mine in a very fancy bottle, of course, and it's wonderful stuff. So there you are. There's a coffee liqueur that's great for cooking, wonderful on ice cream, and it's just fun to drink by itself. Very good. All right. Let's go on to one more here for you. We have a, let's see, this ready? This is perfect, all right? I have a cafe creme de café. It's a coffee custard I want to show you. It's very simple. I have placed in my pan here 2 cups of milk. 2 cups of milk, and then I put in 4 ounces of coarse coffee. I like espresso best myself. Then I'm going to add 3/4 of a cup of sugar. There we are. And then I'm going to add to that, I'm running out of spoons here today. There we go. I'm going to add to that just a pinch of salt, just a tiny pinch of salt. We don't want much, just to help build the flavor. But you don't want it to be salty. And finally, 3 tablespoons of brandy. Good Lord, what's he making? Well, 3 tablespoons of brandy it is. Now remember, the grounds have been sitting in here. Bring your milk and the grounds barely to a simmer, then let it sit for about 10 minutes. Got that? Then you add the 3/4 cup of sugar, and then a tiny pinch of salt, 3 tablespoons of brandy, and then we're going to strain that out very quickly and easily here through a little bitty strainer. Well, I better stir that up. The sugar hasn't dissolved yet. There we are. This one's getting cold. It's been sitting here too long. One of those days, but it'll still work fine. All right, run it through a strainer. There we are. Whoops. Calm down, Jeffrey. The grains are... You'll excuse me. I must dump some of the grounds here. Okay. We'll get rid of that. You have to keep your strainer clean. You see the grounds build up. And close the tiny pores in the strainer, of course. You've already caught on to the fact this is very rich, haven't you? Well, you haven't seen anything yet. Watch what we do next. Okay. Little finger work doesn't hurt at all. There we are. Now we're going to whip this while it's hot. we're going to whip this into, now I did not say we're going to whip the eggs into, we're going to whip this into 5 egg yolks. And please understand that you must put the hot liquid into the egg yolks. If you put the egg yolks into the liquid, the egg yolks are going to cook right away, and you're going to be in real trouble. Namely, you're going to have a big curdly mess, and you don't want that. So whip it in a hurry. Just pour it right into your egg yolks. All right, here we go. All right, and you stir all of this in, and then put this back on the burner and cook it until it's thick. It'll take about, I don't know, 5 minutes? Not much more. Very low heat. About 5 minutes, and you're set to go. And what you come up with, let it cool in a bit, and what you come up with, here you are. It will finally set up like a very lovely, light pudding. I want to try this. A coffee creme, coffee custard, you see. It's really very, very good. Let me try it here and see what, I'll give you my full opinion. Okay? See what we do. You know, you wouldn't believe how clean, how absolutely pure the coffee flavor is. I'm sorry we have to keep cooking. This is just wonderful. All right, put it out here. Let's go on. Have one more for you. It's really by way of telling you more about the history of the coffee bean, because people criticize me in a loving way for eating so much garlic. Well, I have good reason to eat garlic. I'm going to die pretty soon. You know, I've only got about 30 or 40 more years. And I've got a lot of garlic yet to eat. I love garlic. But let's admit it that sometimes when you have garlic on your breath, well, never mind. You understand. Sometimes people don't want to talk with you. So here's what you do. When you're closing out a dinner party and you've had a lot of garlic, a big Italian party, you see. I had dinner with some friends across the street from my kitchen here the other day. We were so full of garlic from sausages and wonderful Norwegian dumplings, I could hardly waddle. What I should have done was to come back here and take 3 coffee beans, dark ones, and simply whole coffee beans, you see, and pop them into my mouth. That's all there is to it. Chew those up. Yes, I know you smell like coffee, but it's better than smelling like garlic. And it'll cleanse your tongue, it'll cleanse your mouth, and the next time you give your lover a kiss, he or she will be very impressed that you have cut down on your coffee intake. The Italians do that in a very strange and clever way. They have a drink that they call sambuco, and it is a, let me light a burner because I want to show you something that's great fun. They have a drink that's close to what the Greeks call ouzo, or what the French call anisette, or what we would call anise liqueur. It's very delicious, and it's very, very sharp. And what they do at the end of a formal meal for an after-dinner liqueur is to put a little bit, see how thick it is? It's very, very sweet. And into that goes a couple of coffee beans. 1, 2, 3, how about that? Maybe 4. Because they want you to cleanse your mouth after dinner. This is warmed over a flame so that, well, watch and see what happens. So that eventually it will ignite. What you should do is warm this in a little saucepan and serve them. But this will ignite very quickly once the flame gets rolling here and the alcohol begins to evaporate. There we go. Can you see that? You see that going? And they bring it to you. Can you see the flame? I hope so. Now you can. Isn't this a ride? Now this is on fire, so be careful with it. The fire goes out, you put your hand over the top. There, now it's out. Now be careful, the edge of the glass is hot. So first you begin with coffee beans in a different way, floating around in an anise-flavored liqueur, anisette, licorice, all right? And first you smell. You smell. And then you smell some more because the glass is hotter than a firecracker. And then you wait a bit, and eventually you drink the liqueur and then eat the coffee bean. Now, if you want to blend this liqueur with ice cream, you'll come up with a wonderful, wonderful dish. A little ground coffee, probably some instant, you see, and some sambuco, and you can come up with a lovely, lovely coffee. My favorite way, however, let me show you this one. This is just too simple and too silly. How about at the end of a dinner party, you were to bring out a bowl of ice cream for everyone, and now don't buy cheap vanilla for this. You buy good vanilla ice cream for this one. And you place a bowl of vanilla ice cream on everybody's plate, and on the top of the ice cream, you sprinkle a bit of first-class coffee. Good coffee. A good ground espresso. Just sprinkle it. This is what Mr. Stewart does. can you imagine the guy goes to work in the morning and he drinks 16 different kinds of coffee each morning to figure out which one he wants to use for blending. And then he comes home at night and for dessert he has ice cream with coffee on it. It's very delicious. 16 beans to make, different beans to make 1 pound of coffee. And the thing that bothers me about what he does is that he has to taste, it sounds like biblical theology to me. He has to taste ahead of time what that bean is going to be when it finally winds up in his dock. He has them all over the world, they ship them in, and he has to know what they're going to taste like before they arrive so that he'll know what to do with them when they get there. And that's how he buys. You see, there's nothing simple about coffee. It looks like it comes out of a can, but it comes from many, many nations in Central America and South America, Africa, all over the world. Wonderful things. And we can celebrate coffee as a party item, and certainly as a normal item for entertaining. Use it for flavoring, use it on ice cream, use it in custards, use it with the chicken. Make a thick sauce with a bit of brandy, coffee extract, and put it over a light veal, and you'll have a wonderful time celebrating coffee. So, until we spend time together again, this is the Frugal Gourmet with his coffee cup, and I hope you have a grand time entertaining with coffee. Until I see you again, I bid you peace. Bye-bye.